Welcome to my channel! Learn with Teacher Ali!
Science 8, Quarter 1, Week 3. Our topic is about patterns of inheritance, and our subtopic is dominant and recessive traits. Content is standard. The learners learn that inherited traits passed from parents to offspring are governed by the rules on the patterns of inheritance. Performance is standard. By the end of the quarter, learners learn to represent patterns of inheritance and predict simple ratios of offspring. Learning competency. Describe simple patterns of inheritance in organism and represent patterns of inheritance of a simple dominant or recessive characteristic through generations of a family. Learning objectives. Describe their family and analyze the common traits present, and describe patterns of inheritance through pedigree analysis. Day 1. Now, let's have a short review regarding plant transport system. Ang ating gagawin ay tanong mo, sagot ko. Write your own question regarding plant transport system on a piece of paper, and then write also the answer. And then next, fold your paper and put it inside the box. Ask a student to pick a question from the box, and as a teacher, read the question and let your student answer it. Students, what do you look like? Now let's have an activity. It will be called scavenger hunt. There are hidden cards inside the classroom with terms and their definition. Divide students into teams and provide them with a list of terms to find. And the team must search for the cards, match the terms with their definitions, and return to the starting point within a time limit. Now let us start with some important vocabulary. Alleles, a different version of a gene found at the same location or locus on homologous chromosomes. And then chromosomes. This is the thread-like structure made of DNA. Genes, the fundamental units of heredity. Dominant, a genetic trait that is expressed when present, overriding the expression of its recessive allele. Recessive, a genetic trait that is expressed only in the absence of the dominant allele. Genotype, the genetic makeup of an organism consisting of the alleles it inherits from its parents. Phenotype, the observable traits or characteristics of an organism resulting from its genotype and influenced by environmental factors. Pedigree, a diagrammatic representation of a family's genetic history, showing the transmission of traits across generations. Homogeneous, having two identical alleles for a particular gene, example, homogeneous dominant or homogeneous recessive. Heterogeneous, having two different alleles for a particular gene, example, one dominant and one recessive allele. Mendelian inheritance, the principles of inheritance discovered by Gregor Mendel, including the law of dominance, law of segregation, and the law of independent assortment. Punnett square, a diagram used to predict the possible genotype combinations of offspring from a genetic cross between two parents. Genotypic ratio, the ratio of different genotypes produced by a genetic cross, representing the probability of each genotype occurring among the offspring. Phenotypic ratio, the ratio of different phenotypes produced by a genetic cross, representing the probability of each phenotype occurring among the offspring. Monohybrid cross, a genetic cross involving only one trait. Dihybrid cross, a genetic cross involving two different traits. And probability, the likelihood or chance of a particular outcome occurring, often expressed as a fraction or percentage. Now, students, which word is familiar to you? Which word do you think is hard to understand? And how are the words related to the lesson on heredity? Day 2. Explicitation. Our topic is about our family and their traits. Our objectives is to describe one's family and analyze the common traits present. Our materials needed is family picture, writing materials which is the ball pen, pencil, or etc. And our procedure is to prepare a family picture and post it in a diagram below. Complete the guide question that follow. The question is, how will you describe your family? Now, list at least 5 members from each side of your family and describe them. Use adjectives to describe each family member's physical appearance and personality traits. Use the table below. Number 2, which trait do you think you inherited from your father, from your mother? And then think about physical traits such as eye color, hair texture or height, or personality traits such as temperament, sense of humor, or talents. Write down your thoughts on what traits you might have inherited from each parent. And number 3, why are some of your traits different from your parents? Day 3. Now let's have an activity. This is called Pedigree analysis. Our objectives is to describe patterns of inheritance through pedigree analysis. Our materials needed is pedigree charts, writing materials like ball pen, pencil, and etc. Here are the procedure. Now, answer the questions below. Number 1, what are genes? What branch of science studies them? Number 2, how do you know that the trait is dominant or recessive? And number 3, differentiate genotype from phenotype. Day 4. Now let us define what are genes. Genes are like the tiny instructions passed from parents to children that shape certain traits or features in the children. Genes are like tiny instruction manuals found in every cell of your body. These instructions tell the body how to build proteins, and these proteins are responsible for all sorts of things like eye color, height, hair texture, metabolism, and even some behaviors. Each gene is made up of a specific sequence of DNA bases, the A, T, C, and G. And just a tiny change in the order of those letters can affect the trait it controls. Genetics. The branch of science that studies genes is called genetics. Genetics is a field of biology that focuses on heredity. This is how traits are passed from parents to offspring and variation, like differences among individuals. Genetics, genes are segments of DNA that serve as the fundamental units of heredity, containing instruction for the development, functioning, and inheritance of traits in organisms. Gregor Mendel, considered as the father of genetics for his work on heredity. He was an Austrian monk and scientist who conducted groundbreaking experiments on pea plants, or the Pisum sativum, in the mid-1800s. His work laid the foundation for our understanding of heredity, how traits are passed from parents to offspring. Traits. In genetics, a trait is a specific characteristic or feature of an organism that can be inherited or passed from parents to offspring. Traits are determined by genes, which are segments of DNA located on chromosomes. Number 1, traits are controlled by genes which come in different forms called alleles. Number 2, every individual gets 2 alleles from each trait, one from each parent. And number 3, these alleles can be dominant or recessive. How do you think that a trait is dominant? Dominant, a genetic trait that is expressed when present, overriding the expression of its recessive allele. A dominant trait is one that will be expressed in the organism if at least one dominant allele is present. In other words, it must be present of a recessive allele. It is usually represented by a capital letter, example, A. And how do you think that the trait is recessive? Recessive, a genetic trait that is expressed only in the absence of a dominant allele. A recessive trait only appears when both alleles are recessive or no dominant allele is present. It is usually represented by a lowercase letter a. Remember that dominant, only one allele is needed for the trait to be expressed, and for recessive, 2 alleles are needed for the trait to be expressed. Genotype, a unique sequence of DNA. The genetic makeup of an organism consisting of the alleles it inherits from its parents. A genotype refers to the 2 alleles an organism has inherited for a particular gene. Phenotype. This is an observable trait. The observable traits are characteristics of an organism resulting from its genotype and influenced by environmental factors. Phenotype is a result of the expression of one or more genes. Now, students, please see the table below regarding the comparison of genotype and phenotype. The 4 main types of genetic inheritance is dominant, recessive, condominance, and incomplete dominance. Pedigree, a diagrammatic representation of a family's genetic history showing the transmission of traits across generations. A pedigree is a diagram that shows how a particular trait or disorder is inherited through several generations of a family. It looks like a family tree, but with symbols to represent people and their traits. Pedigrees are especially useful in understanding whether a trait is dominant or recessive, whether it is a sex link or X or Y chromosome, and who might be a carrier of a genetic condition. Now, students, create a concept map on how they understand the different concepts and ideas that were discussed on heredity. Students, what does genetic diversity mean to you and why it is important in understanding who we are as individuals and as a society? How might understanding diversity in genetics influence your future? Genetic diversity is not just a scientific concept. It is a celebration of our uniqueness. It reminds us that differences make us stronger, healthier, and more adaptable.
Thank you for watching! Also, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and click the notification bell for you to be updated on our latest videos. See you on our next lesson. Goodbye!